point, Ned, that Nina just made. It's about health issues. Could health issues also impact the amount of beats that your heart or heartbeats per minute? Okay. If I was to ask you to measure your heart rate, how would you do it? Is there a way that we can do it? Anybody have any ideas of how you could measure your heart rate? First of all, what's the difference between a beat and the rate? The beat and the rate of your heart. What are your thoughts? Hadley?
Maybe I know the beats, how many times it beats per minute, but maybe rates, like how much it pumps, maybe?
Okay. What are your thoughts, Seb?
Yeah, so beats is how much it does in a minute, and then rate could be how fast it does it.
Does rate mean like how often?
What are your thoughts? All of those? Basically, when you're measuring heart rate, you're measuring how many of those beats we can count. Okay? So how many beats can we count in a minute? We measure heart rates in beats per minute. BPM. Okay. How am I going to feel my pulse? Where do I do it? Jude.
Sometimes you can feel your pulse on your neck.
Okay. Whereabouts on the neck?
Around like here on the side.
Okay. Let's see. Let's have a go. Let's see if we can feel it. So Jude said around the neck. Whereabouts? Okay, let's give ourselves a minute, see if we can locate it. What are we looking for? What are we looking for? A beat? Yep. A pulse? Okay, so we need to, we need to focus, see if we can find it. Anyone found it? I always struggle with the one on my neck. Did you? Okay. Okay, so there's another one that we can measure our heart rates using our wrist. On the wrist, is that what you were going to say? Okay, we're going to have a look at a very, very short video on how to do this, okay? Okay, are we ready? Let's have a look.
When you're taking resting heart rate, you want to have this be the first test so that they're relaxed after they filled out the paperwork. So you do it on their right arm, and you find the radial artery, which is radial side is the thumb side. And you press your two fingers, not your thumb because that's your own pulse. Press it hard enough so that you can find their pulse. And make sure once you have it, then you use your stopwatch and you go for 15 seconds.
Oops.
And you count.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. So, she said, not your thumb. Why not? Why don't we use our thumb, Leah?
Because that has your heart.
It's got your own heartbeat, okay? So, let's see if we can actually find our pulse by using two fingers. So we're going to use our right arm. So use the two fingers on your left arm and just press just below the area where the thumb is. And I can really feel mine now, like it's really strong. And you press hard on it. Okay, so hands up if you didn't or you can't feel it. Wow, I'm sure your heart's beating.
Yeah.
All right. So keep still, all right, and you should be able to feel it around here. Don't move, Max. I can feel it. Yep, just press a little bit harder, a bit firmer. See if you can actually feel each other. So with the person near you, see if you can feel their pulse. Okay, interesting. Check each other, see how you go. You can pair up with somebody else or a group of three and do a group of three. Did you feel each other's? Could you actually feel Max's? Yeah. Okay. Okay, did you feel each other's? Yep. All right. So my next question is, if we're actually measuring our heart rate, okay, so I've got my two fingers and I'm on my pulse here and I'm measuring my heart rate, I need to count to 60 seconds because I'm trying to find out, well, what is my heart rate for a minute? Now, I want you to give it a go and then tell me if you succeed or not. Okay? Count your heartbeats in 60 seconds. Ah, okay. Can someone tell me why it's hard? I wanted you to tell me it's hard. That's what I wanted, so well done. What are your thoughts, Sam? Why is it hard?
It's hard because you have to count 60 seconds and at the same time count the amount of beats.
Absolutely. Did anybody agree with what Sam just said? Okay, so in saying that, is there an easier way of doing it? How can we do it, Rach? Okay, so Rachel said let's do a timer. Okay, so we've actually got computers on our table so we can actually use the online stopwatch, but not yet. Rather than putting 60 seconds or a minute up on our online stopwatch, and we have to wait each time for 60 seconds, is there an easier way? Sam, you had your hand up before.
Like 15 seconds, you can times it by 4, that's 60.
Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah. Absolutely. So 15 seconds. Can we actually do another number rather than 15? 30? And then what do I do with the 30? Times it by 2. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you a bit of experimenting time. Okay, you're going to get the online stopwatch. In actual fact, you probably will only need one per group, one per couple, okay? So listen carefully, I'll say it again. You're working in pairs. Some of you are working in threes if you've got a person missing, so listen carefully. You don't need all of the computers open. It's one per pair, okay? Now, obviously, you're going to need somebody to actually start the online stopwatch and then stop it at a particular time, okay? So, for example, I could have Vera might be in charge of the online stopwatch and you can start it when Nina is ready to do the counting. And then you stop it at either 15 or 30 seconds, whatever it is that you've decided, okay? And then you swap over. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Now, I've got a problem here. We've got Leah. You need to be with someone, I think. Could you go? Could you go with Katie over there? And I'm just looking to see, okay, who have we got? Tommy. You might have to work with Daniel and Seb then, okay, because we're one short. Okay. Have a go. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes at having a go and using the stopwatch and see how you go with counting your heart rate.
Well, what do you think? Can you find it here? Can you find it there? What do you think will work best?
Okay, and when you've both had a go, just put one hand on your head so I know you're done. So if you've both had a go, one hand on your head so I know you're done.
Interesting to know if they decide between the difference of the back and the wrist, whether that changes the
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that as an extra thing as well, just even now. Okay, has everyone had a go? Yep, looks like. All right. So, pencils down. And I'm just going to go around the room and find out what people's heart rate was for the minute, okay, for 60 seconds. Tell me how you also worked it out. What method did you use? All right, so we'll start over here.
So mine was 92.
Yep.
Through my wrist.
Yep.
And mine was 104. We both did the method where we did 15 seconds and times that by 4 to get 60 seconds.
Okay, over here.
I got 80 and I did 16 seconds. So
Times it, yep, over here.
I got 68 and I did 17.
Okay. Thomas?
So I got 72 and just did it in 15 seconds.
Four, okay.
76 and I did the same method as.
Yep, Daniel?
68 real.
Okay.
I got 78 and we just did 37 more times each other.
I got 58 beats and I did 30
Seconds times 2, okay.
did 84 and did 30 seconds times 2.
Yeah, I got 70.
Okay, you did the same, Sam. Over here.
72 and I did 18 times 4.
Okay, over here.
I got 76 and I did 15 times 5.
Tough. Yep. Okay, I don't think there was one that had the same heart rate for the minute. We did. Oh, did you? Oh, wow, okay. There we are, I'm wrong. There's two of you with the same heart rate, okay.
See the variety amongst everybody. Everybody's different.
Yep.
It doesn't seem to be, I mean, we're all different. So it's just amazing to see.
Yeah, so our next activity, Daniel, is we're going to be doing this table in your books.
So you'll need your rulers and your pencils.
Okay, so if you have a look at what is on the screen, so we're going to have three columns, and as you can see, the first column is your resting heart rate. So you're going to put whatever your resting heart rate is, and it could be whatever you had then, okay? Because you weren't really doing any physical activity, or you might like to do yours again, all right? Medium intensity, so it's like walking around the room for 1 or 2 minutes and then measuring your heart rate and see, well, what's the difference? How much did it go up from when you actually did your resting heart rate? Was there a big jump or not such a big jump? And then in the third column, we've got high intensity activities such as star jump. So you would do that for 1 to 2 minutes. And then measure your heart rate again, okay? With the middle and the last column, I've put what physical changes did you notice for both? What do you think that means? What physical changes did you notice? Yep.
Like how you felt and like how much you weighed.
Yep, and maybe it could even be about, well, did the person change colour? Were they panting? Okay. Were they sweating even? All right. Were they able to speak after doing the star jumps? Okay. So what physical changes did you notice? You might notice nothing. It just depends. All right. Now, are you going to do this in pairs, or do you think you'd be doing it on your own? Have a think about it. Pairs, absolutely, because you need, once again, you need that person that's going to be using the stopwatch, okay? And also making sure that you are doing the medium intensity, walking around the room for a minute. Somebody's going to actually time you, all right? And then the high intensity. Once you've done it for one person, you then do it for the other person. Does that make sense? Yeah. Does anybody not know what to do? Okay. You don't have to copy everything down word for word, all right? You can even just put it in, just put MI for medium intensity and HI for high intensity. You don't have to write the whole word, all right? Because we do want to get straight onto the activity. Okay? Once you've done that, you can start, all right? So put in what your resting heart rate is before you do the medium intensity and before you do the high intensity activity, all right? And as I can see, everybody's decided they're going to write the whole thing. Okay. Do it very quickly because we don't want to waste too much time, okay? We've got this activity to complete before 12:30, all right? Can I just ask, while you're doing that, do you expect that your heart rate is going to change a lot in the medium intensity? Do you think there's going to be a big change? Why not?
Because walking isn't that intense. It's just moving, like
Yeah. So,
star jumps is moving your arms.
yeah, yeah. So what do you think? We could even do a prediction. Maybe you could do a prediction. Put a guess down. How much do you think your heart rate's going to increase when you do the medium intensity exercise? And how much do you think your heart rate's going to increase when you do the high intensity? Okay, do a prediction, which, is taking a guess. Do you think it's going to increase by 20 beats, 10 beats, 3 beats? What are your thoughts? So somewhere there you can put P for prediction and what you think. And then once you've actually tested it, we're going to see, well, were we right? How close were we? Or were we really far off? Okay? Put in your prediction as to what you think it's going to be, and then you can start the actual measurement. All right? Hadley.
After we've done the star jumps, do you want us to rest again?
After we've done the star jump, you'll go.
After we've done the medium intensity one, do you want us to get it to go back to the resting heart rate, or do you want to?
That's a good point. That's a good point. What do you guys think? Hadley just said, before we do the high intensity, the star jumps, should we actually rest for a few minutes? What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah? Are we all in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we rest for a couple of minutes, try to get that heart rate down, and then we go into the high intensity. Okay, we've done our predictions. Let's go.
So do your predictions of medium intensity.
Both, for both. Predictions for both. Yeah, it's the person you're working with. The person you're working with. Vera, who did you work with before?
That's it. So Nan's already testing out the walking.
Someone keeping track of how long you've got a timer on? Okay. You make sure you've got the timer on. Straight after. Straight after. Okay, so we're not jumping, just walking pace, just walking pace.
Who's going first out of you two?
Max? No.
Think about how you're feeling. Think about those physical changes that you notice in your body.
What's wrong with my tasting today?
That could be the same one as before because you were resting then anyway. So whatever your heart, yeah, yeah. So how did you put a prediction as to what you think your heart rate will go? Okay, so do you think that, what's your prediction for the medium intensity? 85 and the high 102. Okay, you've done that. All right, so you can start.
probably got time for 2 minutes. More than 1 minute's fine.
2-0-0.
Back.
Turn the volume up.
Really?
Make sure Tommy's on.
You can do it. High intensity. Maybe I'll get you to move all the way across, just somewhere out of the way. High intensity, David.
Alice, get those star jumps.
High intensity. Medium intensity, high.
30 seconds.
To make sure you make a prediction of what your heart rate would change. Quickly do that and then quickly measure
I've got 7 seconds left. 6.
I honestly don't know if I got the timer on my watch. Go. Ready? Go. I'm changing my salad quickly. Stop. Oh, I did put it on. I'm going to say that it's 1 minute. Can we have to do it at the same time?
Oh. That's interesting. Leah found that her heart rate raised like considerably more from medium intensity, so she's recalibrating her prediction for high intensity. She's like, okay. Come on, Ned. High intensity.
Go. Come push yourself, push yourself. Come on, Ned. Come on. Show us what you're made of. Let's go.
I'll stand. The bit that come out of the way, just so
Okay, you ready?
high intensity, Sam.
That can't be. Okay, Ned, you're done.
How long do I do start up? I'll do it.
Especially got a jumper on.
Should I do 1 minute or 2 minutes?
You choose.
I'm doing 2.
We did it at 7.
Oh, that's a good idea.
How is yours? Have you done yours yet? All right, so start it. Otherwise, you're going to be here all day. We'll need to start yours. How'd you go, Ned? Oh, wow. 88? Oh, that was your prediction, so you got... Wow. And that was your resting heart rate. Wow. Okay, didn't raise by a lot. Do you think you may have done that correctly? Did you count the heart? And did you do 15 seconds or 30 seconds? Let's see. Okay. Put that, did I ask you to bring your ruler out, Xavier? Why have you got your ruler out? Go put it away. Measure yours. Okay. Xavier, have you done your high intensity yet?
42. Or is it? That is kind of a lot. 168. Nina, you'll see.
Daniel, have you done your high intensity? Yeah? So that whole group's done theirs? Hadley, you've done yours? Okay, I think we've got maybe one person still. And Daniel, if you go over in that corner and do yours. Is there anyone else that hasn't done the high intensity? Everybody's done it? Okay. Over there, Dan, over there. Okay, so if I can have everybody's attention, thanks Ned. So I've just got a couple more go in with their star jumps, but was there anybody that was actually, that their prediction was actually close to the actual...
So when I did jumping jacks, I guessed 100 and I actually got 100.
Oh wow, what'd you have?
When I did the high intensity one, I guessed 115 and I got 116.
Okay, Thomas.
For the medium, I got 80 and I predicted
80, there we are. Was there anybody who was completely off, like by a lot? Sam, what'd you have?
I guessed 108 for the star jumps and I got 128.
128.
I guessed 110 for the medium intensity one because it was above my resting heart rate, and I got 80, which was below my resting.
Okay, that's interesting because did anybody get below their resting heart rate? Okay, can anybody explain what could have happened there if they got below their resting heart rate? What are your thoughts? What could have happened there? Hands up if you're medium and high intensity rate was much higher than your resting heart rate? Hands up. Right up so I can see you. Okay, hands down. Hands up if your medium intensity or high intensity was actually lower than your resting heart rate.
My medium was.
Your medium was. Can anybody explain that? Can you explain that? What are your thoughts?
I think because it's a walk, I think it's more relaxing and peaceful, like while you're moving. And you may be moving, but it's slowing down your heart rate. Because let's say you're walking on a track, and it might be nice seeing the trees, and it's peaceful, and your heart starts to slow.
But we weren't on a track, we were in a classroom, okay? So I know what you mean, but are there any other reasons why that could have happened? Yep.
Maybe their heart rate was already quite high at their resting rate, so it was relaxing for them to walk around. It was like calming down, like they were really anxious or stressed.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. So that was really, yeah. So Nina said, well, in actual fact, it could have been really high as a resting heart rate because of the fact that some of us were nervous or anxious or excited,
And what have
okay?
what have we just been doing outside? We've been at recess.
Yeah.
Walking upstairs.
Yeah.
You're doing physical activity before.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And then the other possibility is that maybe we made an error. Do you think that that's a possibility that we could actually make an error counting? Yeah? Yeah, so that's another possibility. So, but your high intensity activity shouldn't really be lower than your resting heart rate. Would you agree with that statement? Yeah? Why would you agree, Leah?
Because your resting heart rate, like even if you were nervous, it wouldn't have been that extreme really, because like when it's not like we're in like a really high pressure situation or anything.
Okay.
And like when you're exercising, it might have been like calming at first, but then by the end of it, you probably just wanted to get over it.
So, was your heart beating faster when you're doing the high intensity?
Yeah.
Why? Why is it beating faster? Daniel?
Because you're very you're moving a lot.
Yep.
And it's like your body's flowing.
What's your body using? What's your body using when you're... Okay, your body's using muscles. And what do the muscles need in order to work?
Blood.
And what's in the blood that they need?
Oxygen.
Thank you. Beautiful. We're getting all the answers that we need here. Yes, Max?
Especially you get a higher heart rate because you're moving your arms and your legs, not just like walking.
So you'll use it more limbs.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right. I didn't go through the learning intention this morning because I always like to get that from you. What would you say the learning intention was for this first hour today? What was the learning intention? What were we learning? Nina?
Understand how our own heart rates work.
Okay, so we're learning about heart rates and how ours can change. What else?
How our heart responds to doing certain levels of moving or activity.
Yep, so how our heart responds to different activities. Was there any other thing that we learnt today? Remember our learning intention? We are learning to, even something as simple as what we were doing. What we were doing then. Yeah, measuring our heart rate. Okay? Locating our pulse. What about success criteria? What can you do? What can you do now that you feel, yes, I've had some success in this session?
Maybe I can notice differences in my heartbeat after exercising.
Yep, okay.
I can measure my own pulse.
Yep. Is there anything else? Daniel?
Just getting to know how your heart works.
Okay. Vera?
I can
Do you think that there's more to learn about the heart? Yeah. Do we have a lot more questions? Do you think that could be an investigation we could do further? Okay, because we had some really good questions before about the colour of the blood. Okay, we know that our heart pumps faster when we're exercising, but it'd be so interesting to actually find out, well, why? What does the body need in order to be able to use that energy effectively? Why is it that we perspire if we're running or doing high intensity activities? Why is it that we change colour? Okay, I noticed a few of you going red in the face when you were doing the star jump. Why? What causes that? So these are questions that we can have for further investigation. I'd like you to think of a question that you have from this session that you would like to investigate further. Write that down, because we're going to actually look at that next time. So a question that you have that you are really puzzled about and you'd like to know, well, why is this happening? Why? And why is it that we're, about the same age group and some people had a faster or higher heart rate than others? Why? Vera? Absolutely. At least one. I'll give you all a minute to write one question. Has anybody thought of a question that we have not addressed yet? What's yours?
Why does age mean heart rates are different?
Okay, so why does your heart rate change according to ages? Good one.
When you're doing physical activity and you're getting puffed out and you don't have as much oxygen, does that mean you have more blue blood or something?
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting one, yeah. Anybody else have an interesting question that they'd like to investigate? Nina?
Why we have sometimes we have such dramatic physical changes that we notice when our heart rates are high, but sometimes we don't.
That's a good question. And Hadley?
Does the oxygen we breathe in have any other uses in our body except for oxygenating the blood?
Oxygenating the blood, yeah, okay, yeah.
Does the heart rate change before you die?
Interesting, okay. All right, so we've got some interesting questions that we can follow up on and hopefully find answers to, okay? We will go into the second session in a moment. I know that you will all need a break, and I know that you missed your brain food break before. So once you've finished your question, you may quietly get your brain food and we'll have a couple of minutes break, okay?
I love some of those predictions as well.
Yeah. Okay, so now we'll go into fair test and then I've actually explored that about the heart rates being same or different. And then you're going to do the...
But I'll just do half. Keep it very simple.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
just for timing.
Yeah.
I'll just clarify that we're all across, and I'll just do a couple of examples. So I'll choose someone's heart rate, 86 beats per minute. What would be 50% more? Work that out as well.
Yep.
Why
Okay.
is that?
Yeah, no, give them a bit of a break and then
Yeah.
we'll go on to the next session. They seem to be pretty, doing quite well, I think. Yeah.
Yep. I just said I'm impressed how well behaved they are. Maybe the presence of visitors makes them.
I think, yeah.
I think they are.
It always changes.
Yeah,
But also very responsive.
yeah, they are.
Your Q&A is like very,
It's
very
great,
lively.
yeah.
You don't really have to.
No, and the whole idea is you get them doing the thinking as much as possible, that's rather than being spoon-fed, they need to think, well, that's why I like to question, but why?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, some great questions in
Yeah, absolutely. So,
I
yeah.
love the thoughts around the blue blood and what that's what I'm really thinking about. I love the way that Rachel said, people's lips go blue and they're suffocating.
Yeah.
nature break.
Yes, downstairs, under the stairs.
A school-age child, 5 to 12 years, their average heart rate should be between 70 and 120 beats per minute. The average resting heart is
That is a wide range.
Hello. They filmed at a university. It says school-age children 5 to 12 years, the average
Sorry, Wilma.
is 70. We're getting recorded.
You're not cool enough for a bar. I'm joking.
How was your heart rate, Daniel? Did it change up? So what's that increase of? Because everyone did the same exercise.
Some people might have done it like
So then
it's like an 8 ball with a higher.
Daniel, could you sit down, please? Are we all back?
Nope.
Is there anyone missing?
Yes, exactly.
Downstairs. Yeah, just underneath the stairs, pretty much, yeah. Are we all here?
So we just got Max and Tommy.
Okay, I reckon they've gone for a longer break, those two. That was okay, that session. Did you learn a bit then? Yep.
I thought we got to move.
Yeah. Okay. All right, while you're having your brain food, you know that we're going to continue working, all right? So it doesn't mean switch off, so I want you switching on again. And I'd like you to have a look at the screen, and we're just going to look at, this is the average heart rate for different age groups? Okay, what do you find interesting if you look at the figures? What's something that you find interesting about those numbers? Katie? So say it again, the athletes, was it the athletes? Yeah, athletes' heart rate is lower than the newborns. Okay, interesting. Yep.
As you get older, the heart rate is going, like the higher one is going down.
So as you get older, your normal resting heart rate is decreasing, is that right? Okay, anything else you find interesting, Ned?
When you're a newborn, it's kind of surprising that your heart rate will get up to 190. That seems like very high.
Why do you think a newborn would have such a fast heart rate? And just remember, it's between those numbers, okay? Between 70 to 190. It's a huge range there, really. But why do you think that might be the case? What could be some factors that would make a newborn's heartbeat faster? Ryan, what are your thoughts?
When they usually cry and scream.
Okay, so it's the crying and the screaming, and maybe being born is traumatic. Yeah, it's traumatic, isn't it, for a newborn? Yep.
There'll be a lot of new lights, new sounds, and like it can be very, very overwhelming.
Yep.
It can be very scary.
Yep. Okay. So when we're talking about newborns, we've got to also think it's not just a baby being just born, because it's 0 to 1 month. Okay? So from 0 to 1 month. So any other reason as to why they might be experiencing a higher heart rate when they're that small? Yep.
They're usually growing quite a bit, so it's your body's working, so that makes a higher heart rate.
And so if they're growing a lot more or quicker, okay, because they do tend to grow quickly, and they're eating a lot and they're sleeping a lot and their bodies are growing, you think they need an extra something in order to help that process?
Yeah.
What would they need?
Extra, as in like life stuff like sleeping and food.
Well, I mean, think of the heart and what it's doing and what it's pumping and what's it giving the body.
So they need more oxygen, because when you let's say you do exercise, you breathe out, you replace the warmth with the cold air that you breathe in, and the more you breathe means the faster your heart beats. And because they're growing so much, it's like exercising. So they'll be breathing a ton, and that means more blood's pumping.
Yeah, good point. Daniel?
And also, the smaller the body, it's like the blood travels through quicker because it doesn't have as much places to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
I'm not sure. What do you think that? Because most babies, they don't really sleep through the night because they need to be fed. Would that change the blood pumping? Because I think when you're sleeping, you'll probably be like it'll be lower, but then when you wake up, and then you'll be like doing other stuff, that would be very high. So
That's definitely a possibility. Yeah. I find the athletes' heart rate interesting. Have a look at that. 40 to 60. Yeah, so this is interesting because we've just had a comment. Well, hold on. We just found that when we did the star jumps, what happened to our heart rate? Okay, so now we're looking at, okay, these athletes, well, they're exercising, they're doing this, intense activity. So why is it that their heart rate is actually not high? When you look at it, it's actually quite low. What are your thoughts?
Because they would do that they work out different ways to keep themselves very calm and like in a good headspace and stuff without like worrying and stressing and then getting very tired. Like they'd have different ways to make sure that they're okay.
Okay, that could be a possibility. Rachel, what are your thoughts, Max?
When you're really fit, you're less likely to get a heart attack, so your heart rate will be lower.
Okay. Any other thoughts as to why? Could it have anything to do with your muscles? What are your thoughts?
I'm pretty sure some athletes, let's say they're playing a game sport, when they get subbed off have a rest, they might have a way of bringing the heart rate down much faster than just sitting there. So some athletes might put weights under their ribs.
Why would they do that?
I'm not quite sure why, but it just lowers their heart rate to like rather than it being a high 60 to 70, it might end up being 50 to 40.
What are your thoughts, Dan?
They might like do meditating, like to cool themselves down.
Possibility. That's a question that we can actually investigate further, because it's interesting that we all think, well, your heart rate is going to go up with such an intense activity, and yet that's not happening in the case of an athlete. So we would then find out why. That could be our third session. We can look at why does this happen. So we'll look at exactly what's the heart doing in our bodies that can make that happen, okay? All right, now in the next part of this session, we're going to be looking at I'm going to look at a task first. And if Mr. Aiken puts that task up, it's a little bit out of order as to what I've put down, but I wanted to have a look at the task first that we're going to be doing in this session. Yes, Star.
Can you feel your heart rate in your elbow?
I haven't tried it there. I usually,
I feel a little bit of
yeah.
I'm not sure if it's my arm moving.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You'll have to give it a go and see. And okay, so we're looking at task 1. This is going to be the activity that you'll be doing with a group, with a partner, okay? We'll be designing an activity that will increase someone's heart rate by 50%. And we'll have a look at percentage in a moment. You'll need to write the instructions for your activity, and you will be sharing these in the next lesson. What exercise and how long will achieve this? So you'll be working in partners. And we've got some questions to guide you. How will you measure the heart rate? Will the same person measure the heart rate each time? How will they measure it? How will you keep record or keep track of your attempts? What did you change between each attempt and why? Now, what we're doing is actually called a fair test. Hands up if you've heard of a fair test before. No one? Oh, that's good, because we're learning. You have? Do you know what it is, Katie? You've just heard of it? Okay. Oh, Ned, do you want to have a go?
Oh no, I've got a question. So if you have to add like 50% to the...
We will go on to that in a minute.
Will that be your resting heart rate that you...
We'll go through that in a minute, okay? Let's have a look at the fair test, what it says here. To ensure that your experiment is a fair test, you must change only one factor at a time while keeping all other conditions the same. Scientists call the changing factors in an experiment variables. So, you must change only one factor at a time while keeping all other conditions the same. I'm going to give you an example of, I've got a few students that have been working with me in that CLIP program, in the STEM extension group, and I'm going to use your one, Leah, you're doing the jars, is that right? Okay. So these students were measuring how effective insulation materials are in keeping the heat in winter and keeping the cold out in winter. Is that right? Keeping the cold, or keeping it cooler in summer. Okay. So what were the things that you kept the same in that test?
So we measured them all at the same time, and all the jars were the same size and shape. And we also did it in the same area, so everywhere had the sunlight.
Yes, and what was the thing that you changed?
We changed the materials that covered each jar, and what else did we change? I forgot. It's on the tip of my tongue.
The days?
Yeah, the days.
Okay, because you did the testing on... Yeah, and then on those days there was a temperature variation. But what you kept the same were the jars. You put those jars in the same area every day so that they got the same amount of sunlight. Okay. Yep, and you tested them at the same time each day. And you actually recorded the temperature in the jars after, say, 15 minutes for each one. So that was the same. Why do you think it's important to actually keep certain things the same? What if I use that as an example and I had one glass jar that was a small jar, and then I had a plastic jar, and I had a huge jar this size? Do you think that would give me an accurate reading of what we were trying to find out? So why was it important to keep those jars and certain things the same? Yep.
Because then there would be the same amount of air in each jar, so it would take the same amount of time for the temperatures.
That's right.
Because if you have one jar that's really big, obviously it's going to take longer for the air to warm up.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's think of how we can work out a fair test with your partners. What can we keep the same when we are doing this activity? What can we keep the same? And what can we change? Does anybody have any ideas? What should we be keeping the same? What are we changing? Any thoughts?
What are some of the things you could do with measuring the heart rate?
Do you think it's important to keep the time the same so that if we're doing an activity for a minute, that we don't change that each time? So that if we are doing star jumps for a minute, that in the next activity we still keep the next exercise for a minute? Because I suppose that could make a difference. What could we keep the same? What could we change? Yep.
Something you would keep the same is the person who's doing the exercise.
Why is that important?
Because everyone is different, like different bodies, different ages.
Okay, so we would be keeping that same person doing the various activities. What would we be changing? Or one thing that just came to mind is, well, what about if we're doing an exercise and for one exercise I'm standing up, and then the other one I decide I'm going to do push-ups and I'm lying down, or another one I'm going to do an exercise using my chair where I'm actually sitting. Is that going to make a difference? Katie.
You could change where you measure it. For example, you can measure on your wrist and the time you can measure it on
So you could change the way that you're measuring your pulse. Katie said using your wrist or using your neck. Do you think it's important to keep it maybe the same? What do you think? Do you think it's best to start If you start with your wrist, you keep it on your wrist. If you start with your neck, you keep it on your neck. Yep. Okay. We're going to now that we know what we're going to be doing, it's important that we understand percentage. And I know that a question just came up before about percentage. How are we going to do this? Did you have a comment? I would prefer, just to make it easy for this exercise, that you stick with the person that you've been working with this session, okay? Okay. All right, so percentage. What is it? What's percentage? What does it mean? Any ideas? Yep.
Well, it's hard to explain without using it. Like, it's the percent of something. Wait, let's say,
Where would you see it? Where would you use it?
let's say we have a number, and 100% of that number, you only use like if you're sending half the percentage, you would only use like 50% of that percentage. Like, let's say 6. For half that percentage, if you're using the whole 100% of that, it'd be 3. It's like, it's hard to explain. I don't know.
That's okay. You've given it a go. What are your thoughts?
Let's say you had 500 marbles and you got 250 of them into a basket. You would say that you got 50% of the marbles into the basket.
So 50% is, what's another way of saying that? A half?
50 out of 500 and
A half. Okay. All right.
And if we were to look at, if we were to look at percentage change of a number, so there's defining the percent of the number, like Seb just said, which is we want to find 50% of a number. We know that that's half. But if I asked for something that was 50% more, how would I work that out? Leah?
You could find out half of the original number that you had, so the thing that you want 50% more of, and then you would work out half of that, and you add that half.
So you're working out half of the original number and then adding it onto that number?
Because you want another 50% and 50% is half.
Right, okay. So if I used one, for example, I think I saw that Max's resting heart rate. Do you want to pull that up again? What was it? What number was your... So Max's resting heart rate is 86 beats per minute. Now if I wanted to raise his heart rate by 50%, so I'm wanting to add 50% onto that number, how would I first try and work that out? So 86 beats. Sam?
You'd get 50% of that number.
And so what would that be? So half of 86? 43. And then what would I do with that 43?
Add it to the
Add it
86.
on. So I would add on 129. So that's, if I was asking for, which is what this activity will get us to do, which is design an activity that will increase someone's heart rate, and if it is going to be the resting heart rate, for Max, that will be his target number, which will be 50% more than what his current resting heart rate is. So are we all clear on how you would work that out? So if you had a look at your resting heart rate now, I'm sure we could all calculate what half of that number is.
Oh, let's do it. What's your resting heart rate that you've got on your table? What's your resting heart rate? 80. What's yours? 80. So if Xavier wants to increase his by 50%, what would he have to do?
At 40.
How'd you get that?
Because half of 80 is 40.
Yeah, and then you add 40 to what?
80.
And therefore he has to try to get to 120. Okay. All right. Rachel. 156. What was your resting heart rate?
104.
That was your resting heart rate. Okay. Yeah.
I need to get to 126.
Okay.
Heart rate was 84.
Did you know that our maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age?
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yep. So work this out. What's 220 minus your age? Give me your answer. What's your answer?
209.
209. What's yours?
208.
208.
Wait, I had it.
We'll come back over here.
209.
Over here.
209.
Okay. So that's your maximum heart rate. So that means that it will change with your age. Okay. So when you're 20, you'd be deducting 20 from 220. And myself, I won't give that away, but I know that, yeah, mine's definitely not as high as yours.
Why do we think that is?
Okay, let's have a guess as to why they've come up with this number of 220. I didn't do it. Scientists have worked. Scientists and mathematicians have come up with this number. What are your thoughts?
Would this actually like change, or was that like just dead set?
Yes, it's dead set as far as I know. Yeah, that's the way that they calculate everybody's maximum heart rate. Okay. So where did this 220 come from? Any ideas? Because I know that Mr. Aiken and myself were trying to find, well, where did this 220 come from? And we researched and researched, and
There's a lot of ideas, but no facts. And it's really interesting. We think about why that number 220? What do we think? So if you were 1 year old, or you were just born, why do they think it's 220? Hadley.
Maybe I don't know, maybe they've calculated the average of all the newborn heart rate, and then they figured out like, okay, this is the average, and then they've gone to the 1-year-olds, done that, and the average might have been 219, and then 2-year-olds might have been 218, and so on.
Okay, yeah.
that's a possibility, Vera.
I think maybe instead of the average heart rate, they would have gotten the maximum heart rate.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, you can't average.
Because the average is like
average of the max.
70 to 190, and then the max might be 220 for a newborn.
That's interesting. So when you're calculating your percentage increase, and I think somebody said, what was yours, Xavier, again? 80. And we calculated that 50% more was going to be 120. So it's interesting to see that 50% gives you 120 beats per minute, but yet you've still got a long way to reach that maximum heart rate. Because yours was it around 209? Roughly? Well, it's 220 minus your age. Yeah, so that's interesting. Ned?
If you were like 120, like the oldest person in the world, and then so your max would be 100. So what would your resting be like? Because it couldn't be higher. Because if you just did like exercise, it was like 80 normally, and then if you just did some exercise, it might go up 20 more. Probably would like exercise and there's 120 or up.
Yeah.
But it might be the intensity relating to what you normally do. So your high intensity activity might be different for someone who's
We're going to, because I'm looking at the time, because we've actually even put a task 2, but we've got to get task 1 done. And we're actually going to do this task on a template, okay, so that we can actually follow the instructions. And if I get you girls to give these out, and then we'll go through it and talk about what we're going to be writing in on the template that we've got. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at the sheet in front of us. Does everybody have one? Okay. It's one each? One each? Okay, so everybody's got one?
So if you're, let's say my average, my highest in row is 209. Does that mean if I want any more than that, you get a heart attack?
That's the healthy range that we could check. We'd have to check that one, yeah. Okay, so it's called an investigation report. So what do you think we're going to write in the aim? It says, what is being investigated? Well, what are we trying to find out? What are we doing in this investigation? Have a look at task 1 on the screen, and that should give you a clue. Rachel.
We're trying to find an activity that can get our heart rate up by 50%.
Yeah, so we're trying to find an activity that can get our heart rate up by 50%. What do you think the method is asking you to do? Hadley, what's the method?
Step-by-step instructions.
Yep, so step-by-step instructions as to how to actually do this investigation that you are planning. Have a look at the diagram. What's that requiring you to do, Ned? What does the diagram?
Complete an illustration of the method you plan to use. Use numbers to indicate different steps of the investigation.
Okay, so do you want to explain that?
If you wrote the step-by-step instructions for someone to follow, so whatever activity they might do to raise their heart rate, you might want to draw diagrams to show people maybe the movements they do. So if you're having someone, I'm not going to tell you some of the ideas, but if you have someone do an activity, you might draw a stick figure doing that activity. So when someone reads those instructions, they're clear on what they'll need to do.
Okay, so if you turn over and there's a results section, Sam, what do you think we're going to be doing in the results?
Just the results, what was the outcome?
Yep, so a record of what was observed and measured during the investigation. Here is where you can put a table, all right, of your observations or measurements. And what about in the discussion? The discussion, what do we do there, Max?
What problems were encountered, happen in the investigation, the improvement, and what was the
Yep, okay. Yep. So basically this is a part of a scientific report. So if you're doing an experiment or an investigation for science, you would be completing an investigation report similar to this. So in this investigation, we're actually looking at how we can increase somebody's heart rate by 50%. What are we going to do to achieve that? And we're going to write the step-by-step instructions, because once we've done that, we're going to swap, we'll give our investigation, our instructions to a partner, okay, and they're going to try and see if it worked. Does that make sense? They're going to follow your instructions. Yep.
So are we working together with our partner on the sheet, or just after?
I think this particular one, I'd like you to do this on your own, okay? But then when we actually do the activity and the measuring, we can get people to work in pairs, all right? So you can trial Ryan's, for example, and then, you know, Ryan's will trial yours as well, and so on, and see which one worked, which didn't, which one was close, which one wasn't, why, and so on. Yep.
Are we allowed to use the high intensity activity from before, go off of what our heart rate was then?
That is using prior knowledge. Absolutely you can. Absolutely. And that's a good point, because, you know, if you didn't hear what Rachel said, she said, can we use the information we've already got on our tables to help us be able to work out what we should be doing and for how long? Does that make sense? Yes, you can. And you can make those adjustments. And if you think that the star jumps were too high, well, think of an activity where it's not maybe so intense. Think of your target number is 50% more of your resting heart rate. So that's what you're trying to get. Yep.
Do you have to get exactly 50%?
We're trying to get as close as possible. Okay, as close as possible. Yep.
So do we just do the activity looking at our own, or are we doing it so like I can look at Katie's and see her 50%? And
Well, I think the best way of doing this is that you do your own, okay, for you, all right? And then you can trial it and see how it goes. And and then we can do a swap and try some other people's and see whether it worked for you and, if it was far off and whether somebody else's was better than yours and why. And so we can just then test each other's experiments and see, if they're similar or different, what worked, why they worked and so on. So if you do this investigation for yourself to increase your own heart rate, does that make sense? Yeah. And then we will have a go, if we've got time, at actually putting it into place and seeing if it works. We may not have time. If we don't have time, it might have to be session 3 that we do the actual exercise that you've written, all right? So this is the planning stage. I'd like you to complete both the front and the back. Think of what you're going to do for how long. The front, yeah, because we can't do results yet. Yep. Yes. Okay. So we're doing the front, we're doing the aim, the method and the diagram of what this is going to look like. The results and discussion we can't do yet until we've actually done the actual exercise, all right?
Now, we've all completed some procedural tests recently, so it should all be clear on the kind of language you need to be using. How would you communicate some of these instructions? What sort of voice do you need to use? How would you get someone to know what you're trying to tell them what to do? How could you organise the information? Flavia? Huh?
Maybe steps or dot points.
Steps, so dot points, absolutely. That could organise the information so it's nice and clear.
So have a go at doing this activity. Think of what activity you can do for how long to get to 50% more of your resting heart rate. Do you know what your resting heart rate is?
Like around 76 beats per minute.
Okay, so 50% more of that is what? Well, what's a half of 76?
Half 70.
38. So you add 38 onto 76 and you get what? That'll be the 50% more that you're trying to achieve. Yeah, do it. Yes, we will get to we won't get to test it now because we won't have time, but we want you to write the steps of how to do it. Yeah, Rachel, remember how you actually asked that question before about can we use the information that we've recorded already? So that's prior knowledge that you can actually go and have a look at that, because use that information to help you with this investigation. have a look at your... Okay, so what are you trying... Write down what you're trying to achieve. Your aim is 50%, okay, more. So what's that going to be? What's 50% more for you?
For medium intensity?
No? What was your resting heartbeat?
92 beats per
92? Okay. So what's a half of 92? 44 and 44 is 88, so not quite.
would it be 50? Like, you can't remember.
No. So, do you know how to do division? Okay, 2 into 9, how many times does it go? 2 goes into 9, how many times?
Does it?
2 times what? Gives you a number that's 9 or less.
6.
Or 2, yep, but can you fit another 2 in there before you get to 9?
8 probably.
Yeah, so 2 times 8 is 2 times 4 is 8. That means 2 goes into 9 4 times, and how many left over?
1.
Put the 1 in front of the 2. How many 2s go into 12? What's a half of 12?
Half of 12 is 6.
Yeah, so it's 46. So now you add 92 and 46. So you have to get to 138 because that's 50% more of your resting heart rate, okay? Yep. So 138. See, in high intensity, you were 156. Your medium intensity, you were 120. You got to try and get to 138. So what do you think you would need to do? How many minutes did you do that for?
2.
Okay, should we decrease it or should we increase this?
Maybe if I do star jumps for 1 minute.
Okay. So if you do star jumps for 1 minute, do you think that that's going to get you to 138? Or should we increase the time of the medium intensity? Okay, have a think about it. Have a look at your medium intensity heart rate. Have a look at your high intensity heart rate. Use those as clues to help you design this investigation, okay? If I give you an example with Nina, is she's trying to achieve 138, 138 beats per minute, and she's using her knowledge of her medium intensity that was 120 beats per minute and her high intensity was 156. So one was low and one's too high. So she's going to have to work out which one am I going to do, or am I going to do a combination of both? Do I decrease the amount of time? Do I decrease the amount of time that I did that intensity workout? Don't know. You need to work it out. And you're... Okay.
I did it 3 times and I got completely different results.
Okay. Also, we can readjust our resting heart rate because we've got... We're listening? We've got Katie here she's trying to get her resting heart rate again because she said that she tried it 3 times and got different answers. Sometimes just take an average. Add them and then divide it by 3. Does that make sense? And then that gives you an average. So we're using that information to try to come up with what's 50% more than your resting heart rate. Is that what you got to get to? So your resting heart rate was what?
But except when I did star jumps for 2 minutes, it was 100.
Was that your resting heart rate?
104. My
Okay.
estimate was 100.
Okay. So 104. What's a half of 104?
52.
Okay, so you add 52 to that and you get?
156.
Okay, so what are you going to do to try to get to 156? Have a look at what you got for your high intensity. Is that your high intensity there? Oh, that's the one?
Yes.
Okay, so that's actually higher than 50%. And that one is lower.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to have to work out which one might be closer to 156. Which one's closer, and maybe work with that one and think, okay, well, can I yeah, should I do less start? Yeah, so how long did you do that one for?
2 minutes.
Okay, so think of, you need to decrease this by about 10, is it roughly about 10 beats per minute?
Yeah.
So what can you do to decrease that by 10 beats?
Maybe you could start off by doing like a minute and then like walk it off a tiny bit.
Okay, so
Because it's still like the star jumps, the activity you're doing a lot.
so if you want to walk it off, remember we want to bring it down to 10. We want to bring it down to 10 beats per minute less. So you could do the same amount and then walk it off for a certain amount of time to get that heart a little bit slower, or heartbeat slowing down a bit. So that's where you got to work out, try and do a bit of calculating. How many minutes do you think you would need to do each activity to get to 156? Yeah? Yeah, but use the information that's there to guide you. What'd you think of, Leah?
Mine was 80, so I need to get to 120. So with the high intensity, so 2 minutes of star jumps put my heart rate at exactly 140.
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So you're
trying to see how many minutes or seconds of star jumps would put me at 120. So once I find that out, I'll try that.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is,
Yeah, I got a lot of zero.
yeah. So where's the actual? Oh, here's all your information. So that's your resting heart rate. Yeah. And then when you did the high intensity, it went to 100. So it increased by 60. By 60 beats per minute, right? Okay. So we basically need to get that down by 20, don't we?
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how many minutes, would a minute and a half equal that? And then
Or you could do the same amount, but then have an amount of time where you just walk it off for a certain period of time to slow it down a little bit.
then rest for 30 seconds.
Yeah, and see if that brings it down.
That would probably bring it down a bit.
Yeah, yep. Put that. How we go in here?
No, you can make it go up. I guess it's like a type of exercise in some ways.
Mine might sound a bit crazy, but I'm trying to make them hold their breath for as long as possible, because whenever I hold my breath, I can feel my heart starting to go up a bit. So I'm thinking, what if I could possibly extend out the period of them holding their breath with a breath exercise of in through the nose, out through the mouth, and exercise their lungs before they do it. And they're sitting somewhere comfy and quiet, so there's not much to distract them, and they could possibly even drift off and drink, have some kind of danger.
So what are you trying to achieve? What's the actual beats per minute?
Yeah.
So what was your resting heartbeat?
Mine was 76.
76. Okay, so increase that by 50%. What do you get? What's that half of 76?
38.
Okay, add 38 to 76. What do you get? So you're trying to get to 104
Yeah.
beats per minute. So that's your aim.
Yeah.
Okay. Therefore, so maybe write down 104 beats per minute is what I'm trying to achieve. When you did the high intensity, you did 116 there. You got 116. So can you use any of this information to actually help you get to 104? What you were saying before, do you think that would get you to 104 beats per minute? Because you've got you're sitting, you're holding your breath, you're resting. Okay.
I mean, but when you hold your breath, your blood's not getting any oxygen. And so I'm pretty sure that would make your heart beat faster.
Okay, so let's see if you're right. What I want you to do is actually hold your breath. No, somebody's going to time you, okay? Maybe just do 15 seconds and see whether your heart rate is different to your resting heart rate, wherever that is. Where's your resting? Here. Okay, so try and see if that actually works. Does it decrease your heart rate or does it increase it by holding your breath? All right, so you're going to do the timing, all right? And then I'm curious to know what you find out.
Should we hang on to their sheets?
So they can, we'll take them. Well, we'll take them for next time. Yeah.
So how did we go understanding how to, what were the success criteria we decided on? It was that we wanted to be able to do a few things, right? What were those things that we were trying to achieve? Do you remember this? There were a few things we did. What did we try and achieve, mate? What did we try to do recently?
We tried to get resting heart rate, and we got we checked our heart rate after a medium intensity workout and a high intensity workout, and now we're doing the investigation.
Well, what are we trying to do in that investigation report?
To get 50% higher of the heart rate when resting.
And in your case, what's that? What's 50% more? Okay. Did anybody use the information from the previous session to help you with your investigation? Okay. Hands up if you used your heart rate for the high intensity and you decided, well, I'm going to use that and either increase it or decrease it. Couple of you. Sam, what did you do? How did you work yours out? Boys at this table, if you can stop, please, Daniel and Tommy, thank you.
So I needed to get to 120, and so at my heart rate was 128, and it went up by 40. So what I did was, to start out with 60 seconds, and each 15 seconds my heart rate would go up 10 beats per minute. So I changed the time to I did it for 50 seconds.
Okay. You've done a bit of a mathematical equation there to try to find that out and put that into your investigation. Daniel, what did you do?
I did doing skipping ropes.
Yep, so what can you give me? What information, like how long and...
Probably for about a minute, trying to jump
Did you use your previous high intensity heart rate to help you with that? Did you use that at all?
A little bit because it's similar to your jumping.
Okay, all right. It is lunchtime and I know that it's been a long session, so well done guys. We will continue with this, okay? We will actually have another session where we will continue with this investigation. It might even need to be more than an hour because we've even got some questions that we're going to be investigating. Those questions that we wrote down, we want to find the answers to those as well. And we'll also continue with the investigation and then actually do it and see if it worked and if it didn't and so on, okay? All right, we need to collect the sheets, so make sure your name is on the sheet. And can I have, Max, could you go around and collect the sheets? Just go and collect them.
It's Pilates.
Can I get everyone to put
So I've